Welcome to another garden tour. It is July now, so things are really cranking away, but not everything. Unfortunately, some of the problems that I showed you last month are really starting to show themselves this month, so we'll do an in-depth look. I'm going to show you the good, the bad, the ugly. Some things are doing absolutely fantastic. I'm so excited about at least a few things are doing really, really well. So this will be a just humble tour through my garden. I'm going to show you everything A to Z, what pests I'm dealing with, what I'm going to be doing preservation wise with a lot of the things. And also, since I am a zone 3, zone 4 Minnesota gardener, we are already starting to think about fall. I did a lot of my fall garden planting this week, so I'll give you a peek at what that looks like around here. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Katie, the Homesteading RD, and I'm so thankful that you're here. Let's start the tour. And we are going to be racing weather today. We'll see if we can get the tour done before the storm hits. So before we get into the details, I wanted to give you a quick overview of how I have my garden set up. This is my large back garden, so this is where the majority of the food production happens. It's about 52 feet wide and 25 feet deep, and I have 13 rows, and here is my mistake. So my rows are 3 feet wide, which I love. I feel like that's really the sweet spot for me. But I was a greedy gardener and I only did 1 foot wide walking paths, and that has really become an issue, which you'll see as we get into the tour. And as far as fencing goes, I always get asked about my fencing. This is electric poultry netting. Absolutely love this stuff. I've been using it to protect my garden for, gosh, maybe 8 years now. I'll link it in the description if you're interested. It keeps everything out, including the deer, believe it or not. Yes, they could technically jump it, but for whatever reason, they don't. So love this fencing. Not only does it work great, but I love that it's temporary. So if I want to expand my garden, which I would love to do, I can, move it out further and all of that. Okay, so let's go ahead and start right up front here. And this is where probably the most has happened or changed from last month. So this first section here is largely my brassicas, and wow, it looks a whole lot different. So let's go ahead and jump into the details. First up front, what you're gonna see is a lot of companion planting flowers. I really leaned into this over the last few years and it has made a huge difference. So these are calendula. This is a wonderful, not only companion planting flower, but it's medicinal as well. So I have all sorts of salves going. I'm infusing some oils. It's just really soothing and calming to the skin. Basically, if you have any skin irritation, eczema, you name it, this will fix it. So you're gonna see a bunch of this throughout my garden. You can see there's more back here, there's more here, there, and there. My other favorite companion planting flower are marigolds. So I have these all throughout. They're really good at repelling pests. Also just adding a nice splash of color in the garden. And what you're gonna see is I don't have too much for pests. I have a little bit, which I'll point out, but I really feel like these flowers help protect my plants. The third companion planting flower that I use quite a bit, but I've been disappointed in this year, are the nasturtiums. It seems like I'm getting a lot of leaf production, but there's like hardly any flowers on here. There's one. That's all we got. So I'm not sure what the deal is there, just not been as impressed. And they also added some new things this year. I've never grown them before. So these are bachelor buttons. I love purple and blues. Those are my favorite colors. And so that'd be fun just to add them to the garden. I don't know if you can see the bumblebee down there. Oh, it went around the corner, but it's definitely bringing in pollinators. So this has been a win. And while we're talking companion planting flowers, let's go ahead and go down here. This is also another new one for me. I see bumblebees all over it. There's a ton in there. This is salvia. So this has been super fun, kind of hit and miss. You'll see another one of it down further on in the garden that isn't doing so well, but this one at least looks happy, and yeah, I think I'll grow it again. So while this is technically my brassica patch, you'll notice I do have a squash in here. For some reason, zucchini just always seems to work well with my garden plan to tuck it in the brassica section, and she is just looking beautiful at this moment. I'm trying a new method, which is staking it up. So you can see I've just been using strips of, let me get around here so you can see a little bit better. Just strips of an old t-shirt, and I've just been tying it up so that it'll be more vertical as it grows rather than going sideways. And I was especially nervous this year with just the way the plan worked out. This is pretty close to the fence, so I didn't want it to grow into there and get shocked by the fence and all that. So far, so good. I've been really happy with this method. We're getting lots of zucchini. I just made a loaf of zucchini bread last night. We've been grilling it, we've been pan frying it, you name it. Lots of zucchini right now. And so far, so good. I haven't had any squash vine borers. So next, let's talk broccoli. I have a cluster of 8 here, and there were 8 over there. So a total of 18 plants for my spring planting. And in June, I went ahead and harvested all the main heads. So you're not gonna see any major head production. And honestly, they look a little sad, which is okay. They're gonna come back. I usually leave most of my broccoli plants in place after I harvest the main head because they're gonna send out all of these lovely little side shoots. So you can still come along and harvest these. And honestly, it's easier than a main head because then you don't have to chop it up to cook. Like, these are ready to go. So they'll look a little rough in the beginning until they kind of basically start to send up new plants. So there's these new shoots with these fresh leaves that look good. So just be patient. It will start sending side shoots most of the time. Now there are a few plants, like you can see, there is no plant here, or at least not an established plant. Sometimes they just don't tolerate having the main head harvested and don't seem to do side shoot production. So those are the ones I pull out and pop in new little baby plants. So this is for my fall garden. So hopefully this guy will get going and I'll be able to get a main head out of it before we freeze in mid-September. But again, thankfully broccoli tolerates a light frost, so we probably have until early October for this guy. The other thing that I've been doing with these broccoli plants is really aggressively removing the old leaves. So you can kind of see the remainder of it all out there. The chickens just love it, so I just toss them out there. And it really helps kind of clean up the space. So there were a bunch of huge old leaves just sticking around the bottom, which were A, blocking my new plantings, but B, they just cluttered everything up and weren't serving the plant anymore. So don't be shy, feel free to pull off those old leaves. Like for example, this one, this can probably get pulled off. It's just kind of old, it's starting to lose its color. It's sticking way out into this plant and it's already starting to make baby fresh leaves that are serving the plant better. So we just pull it off and off to the chickens it goes. Now those are edible, you can totally eat them if you want, but the chickens just love it. And then over here you can kind of see the same story. These ones were a bit more spotty as far as which ones were recovering. Some are doing really well in putting off lots of little side shoots. This one actually is pretty decently sized, but 4 of them were kind of like so-so and I needed space anyway. So I pulled them out and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 new little plantings here. And you'll notice that I did pretty well as far as the cabbage worms go. They really haven't affected my crop much at all until this week. All of a sudden I noticed, let me find it. Here we go. There's a little bit of kind of the poop that's left on there from those worms. And so I really took a hard look and was able to hopefully find them all and smash them before they could cause too much damage. There's just, you know, some little holes here and there, but overall we're doing okay. And these heads are just really going to town. So these are my Passat F1 cabbages. This is probably my biggest one so far. They are just huge and beautiful. I probably need to start harvesting these and making some sauerkraut, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I have 6 of them going. And I did my spacing a little bit differently this year after last year was an absolute disaster. So I'm very thankful that I did it in a staggered pattern. So you can see kind of how I have them alternating, because before I had them basically how my broccoli is, where they're 2, 2, 2, and 2 and 18 inches apart. And they were just, well, you can see they're quite large. It just wasn't working out. They were totally spilling out into the walkways. They still are, you know, kind of spilling out a little bit, but this is working a whole lot better. In July, you may remember that I was kind of alternating with some chamomile as companion planting in between the cabbage heads, but that was just too much. It was really spilling out, so I ended up pulling those out, and we're just gonna stick with the cabbages here. We have enough companion planting flowers that, for the most part, they have helped protect this area from the cabbage moths. Forgot to point out, I have a couple more little broccoli plants here. I'm still utilizing 18-inch spacing for them. That works okay. And I do have 4 new cabbage plants here. So these are going to be for my fall harvest. This is a 90-day variety, I think, so I don't know. We'll see if they mature in time. If not, that's okay. We have plenty of cabbage going on over here. I'll probably give some to my parents too, because this is probably more than the two of us could ever eat, but we do eat a lot of sauerkraut, so we'll probably make several gallons of that. Other things going on as far as my fall plantings go are basil. So I'll show you my basil up by the house. I have a second smaller garden up by the cabin up around the corner, so that's where my herbs are, and so I decided to put the basil back here, and we'll see how it does this fall. All right, what else is going on back here in this brassica patch? So the kale is doing fantastic. It's always a rock star in the garden, at least for me here in Minnesota. It loves our cool weather. It is very humid today. I feel like I'm already sweating. I tried to get out here as early as I could, but whew, I feel like if you're in Minnesota, you probably feel my pain. We get through winter knowing that we have a wonderful summer coming, and this summer's just been kind of, I mean, it's been okay, but I feel like it's been either really hot, really humid, or really smoky from the wildfires. Feeling a little bit gypped, so hopefully this humidity breaks, because I just don't tolerate it very well. So I have 6 plants going, and we end up freezing quite a bit of it. Summertime, I just kind of let it go and we use it fresh as needed. So I'll put it in quiches, soup, maybe if we have a cooler day. It actually got into the 40s, I think, last week. So we're still having cooler days here and there. Yeah, otherwise in the fall, once we're kind of nearing the end of the season, I just harvest a bunch of this, freeze it, and then it's just fantastic to use all winter long. We use a lot of kale, and this is the Arun F1 kale. It just has really good texture in the leaves. It holds up well in soups, casseroles, you name it. It's also still good in a salad, so I'll just give it a light massage, and it really gets pretty tender and is nice that way as well. So the other thing that I really like about this variety is if you are struggling with the cabbage worm, this one seems to resist it quite a bit more than other varieties I've tried in the past. So absolutely love this. 6 plants seems to work well. I did 12 last year, and that was way too many. So 6, we have it dialed in. Next is a mixed bag of really good news and really bad news. The really good news is that these 2 Brussels sprouts are doing amazing. They're looking a whole lot better than mine last year, so I'm hoping this will be a better harvest. They're getting pretty tall. I'd say they're maybe 3.5 feet tall now. I do cage them because, as you can see, they end up getting quite large, kind of like a tomato, so a little bit of support is good. And we are starting to get, I need to start pulling some of these lower leaves off. I like to kind of prune it up as it grows, also similar to a tomato plant. But let's try and see, there we go. So you can see we're already starting to get some great Brussels sprout formation on there. And then that leads us to one of my big disasters. I have never experienced this before. I had 2 other Brussels sprout plants here, and they have been absolutely demolished by ants. You can see the ants right down here. I don't know if you can probably see that in the video. But I have done absolutely everything I can to try to control them. You can see I have some outdoor ant killer stuff. I even threw some indoor of the taro ant killer stuff. I even tried mixing in borax with peanut butter to see if they could go for that. I've tried diatomaceous earth. I've tried dumping boiling water. I'm completely out of ideas, and they are just absolutely prolific in here. If you have any tips, please let me know. It seems like it's all root disturbance. They were never crawling on the Brussels sprouts. I just think they have such an extensive network underneath there that they were just disturbing the roots and killing the plant that way. So the last idea I have is just like totally digging up this whole area. I don't know. I'm frustrated. I really wanted to at least plant something here for a fall garden. I thought I'd have this taken care of by then, but not looking good. They are still going strong. So that wraps up brassica land. Doing pretty good over here. And then next up is my trellising. So I have a couple things going on here. First up are the peas. I've actually never grown peas before, which feels odd to me. It's such a delicious food. I just never got around to it. And so this year I thought I should grow peas. Let's give it a try. And overall, I've been really happy with it. They seem to be doing quite well. I thought that they were more of an early season thing, so I'm actually surprised that they were ready for picking the same time as my cucumbers. They seem on the same schedule, but I think the difference was these I direct seeded, where the cucumbers I started indoors. So I think next year I'm gonna start these indoors so I can get a little bit more of a head start. But yeah, these have been so fun. I'll definitely probably do these again next year. But the cucumbers are definitely the main star here. I have 3 different cucumber plants and just 1 of the peas. And this seems to meet our needs. We're just a family of 2 for enough pickles for a year. So this is the H19 pickling cucumber. This one's just about perfect for picking. And I found that not only are they fantastic for preserving for pickles, but they're also great for fresh eating as well. So I don't grow any slicer varieties anymore, just this one. It seems to meet our needs for everything. And I have long since given up on canning cucumbers into pickles because I just feel like they never turned out into what I wanted. So now I just ferment and do fridge pickles. I do have a fridge pickle recipe on my website. I'll link that in the description if you're interested. And as far as my trellis goes, I've just been using cattle panel fencing with some T-posts, and this is about 1 foot apart. And I've been doing this setup for a couple of years now, and I've been really happy with it. Next up is our big sea of tomatoes. They are doing absolutely fantastic so far. And yeah, let's take a closer look at the varieties I have going on. The first up front, I believe I have 10 plants of this, is the Plum Regal. This is my main production tomato. She has not failed me yet. I've been growing her for years. You can see we're already starting to get some tomatoes on here, but we're still early in the season. Nothing is ripe yet, unfortunately, but hopefully within a couple weeks, we'll start being able to preserve all of the tomato things. But I love this tomato for several reasons. One is blight resistant, which is such a blessing. If you're someone that has struggled with blight with your tomatoes like I have at our last homestead, there was so much blight in the soil. Oh, it was just an ongoing battle. So this really seems to defend well against it. So highly recommend it for that. The other thing that I love is that these are determinate tomatoes. And so this is going to be a smaller size. You're going to get a bunch of your tomatoes early. And with us having such a short growing season, it just really pays off, because having the ability to pick for months and months and months is great if you live in the South and you have a long season, but I do not. So let's just get them done so I can pack them all away and hopefully get enough harvested before it freezes. The other thing is you'll notice that I just use simple tomato cages. This works for me. I already own them. They're just so easy to set up. And because these are determinants, they have a smaller size, a compact size, so they do fine. And so I don't have to come up with some fancy trellising system, which is great. Now where it gets a little bit more complicated is I do grow a couple indeterminate tomatoes, and you can see the size difference. These are already about as tall as I am, so they're well over 5 feet, where here you can see the determinants are quite a bit shorter. So this is where it starts to get interesting. You can see I've already just put a stake in to support the tomato cage. I probably should trellis these ones, but whatever, this works good enough for me. So this is the Mountain Sunrise tomato. I believe it'll be more of a larger kind of grape tomato, not a full-size tomato, but not necessarily a cherry tomato, something in between. And this was actually a new tomato plant that just was created by the same producer that created the Plum Regal. He actually reached out to me and sent me these seeds to try out. So far I've been really impressed with it. Absolutely no signs of blight. He said that this one's also fairly blight resistant, so we're looking really good here. Same with this next tomato over. This is called the Sweet Prince. This one is more of a cherry tomato. This is also by the same producer, also blight resistant. We are just, so far so good. I can't wait to get some ripe tomatoes. So we're getting pretty darn close on these. Now this one is probably my biggest tomato so far. This is my Pink Bower. This was a new one that I tried last year, and these tomatoes are just gorgeous. They have this lovely striping, again, still green, waiting for the tomatoes to ripen, but it's just prolific. And these are my fun little slicer tomatoes just for fresh eating. This one isn't quite as blight resistant, but still I think we're doing okay. I haven't noticed any signs of disease yet, which is a shocker because it's been so humid. We've been getting some rain, not quite as much as last year, but by all means, it should be showing up by now if it were going to. It's probably time for me to stake this one up. It's already starting to flop over a little bit. Around this time, need to probably start topping these so that it just doesn't get too top heavy. Again, if I was trellising, I could let it keep going, but as we get close to fall, it's good for me to go and top my tomatoes anyways, and same with other things like pepper plants, squash plants, that type of a thing, to help force the plant to ripen what it has down here before it freezes. So it all kind of works out timing wise. And then lastly, I have my tried and true, this is the Mountain Vineyard tomato. This one I've been growing for probably 10 years. This is just the most wonderful little cherry tomatoes. They hardly ever crack. They're just gorgeous. Still waiting for those to ripen as well, but this is just a wonderful one. I tend to freeze dry a lot of these, and then they're great for cooking with all winter. So this is definitely a big production tomato for me. And since it has been so humid and I've been worried about blight, I've been pretty aggressively pruning. I could probably take even more, but I pulled out a massive pile of cuttings from all these tomato plants just a couple of days ago. So it's looking a whole lot better. You can kind of see through here, at least, where before it was dense, you could not see through it. So really trying to stay ahead of the blight. I've also been pruning up the bottoms. You can see all the way along. There's no leaves touching the ground. Just really trying to do my best to not struggle with blight like I did last year. Last year I had such awful blight. I think part of it was because I grew that awful Amish paste tomato. I will never grow it ever again. I mean, I'll never say never, but I highly doubt that I will ever grow that tomato again. I put a whole video out there last year on doing a side-by-side of the Plum Regal and the Amish paste tomato, so you can check that out if you want to, but yeah. And then here at the end of the tomato section, have a few more things. I do have a little bit of chamomile. This is growing for largely tea production. I love chamomile tea for bedtime, so I've been drying the little flowers. And then, surprise, surprise, look at me go. I'm actually growing an eggplant. Last year was just so miserable. It was so kind of cloudy, rainy, cool that they just up and died. So it's been a lot warmer this year, at least finally. We kind of had a really cold start to spring, and then the heat really turned on. So it's been kind of a whiplash summer, but the eggplants are loving it. Still not having any sort of fruit production. I haven't seen any little baby eggplants yet. This is kind of a slower going one, but hopefully soon. They're looking promising. We will see. More companion planting flowers. We have our marigolds and our calendula, and I'm so pleased to say that I haven't noticed any signs of the aster yellows. If you saw my garden tours last year, I just got absolutely demolished by aster yellows, and I've been just like constantly praying that it's not going to happen this year, because that was devastating. I had to pull all of my companion planting flowers out. It also really hit my carrots hard, so those did not store well. I had to throw a bunch of them out by late winter, so fingers crossed that it doesn't happen this year. And then the beans. I think I kind of learned my lesson from last year. Last year I did 4 rows of bush beans and they just absolutely took over. So this year I'm doing 3 and it's a little bit better. It's still, you know, pretty tight to get through here, and that's where my biggest regret is on making this garden. I thought, you know, a foot wide walking paths would be sufficient. I was being greedy and I wanted as much growing space as possible, and well, I achieved my goal, but now it's just kind of a bear to get through here. So I think if I were to do it again, I would do 18 inches or probably 2 feet wide walking paths. I'm really starting to, as I'm getting older, appreciate just being able to move freely through here and not be just totally crowded and everything. So, oh well. And while we're looking at the ground, I know some of you are probably wondering about my mulch situation. So this is something that I've really evolved with in the last few years. So I like to use organic straw around my plants and then wood chips on the walking paths. And so the reason why I like to use the 2 is A, just aesthetically. I think it looks nice to have a break in 2 different things. But the main thing is these walking paths, I'm probably never gonna grow food here. So this can be a more permanent solution like wood chips. And we have a lot of wood chips because we have a wood chipper now, which is great. So this has really been working out well to suppress weeds. You know, it's not perfect. You're gonna see some weeds down in here, but it helps quite a bit. And then the organic straw I like to use around the plants because this is not quite as permanent. You can pull this up and at the end of the season, which I like to do. Some people like to leave their mulch down, but I prefer to remove it in the fall for 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is I just don't want any pests overwintering in the mulch. I just have this paranoia about pests, and so far so good. It's been serving me well. As you've seen, I have some pests here and there, but it's not awful, minus that one little patch of ants. We've got some work to do over there. Item number 2 is I have really heavy clay soil, so I have a lot of work to do on my soil. It's not where I'd like it to be. So I need the mulch off so I can get in there, work in amendments, do some deep broad forking and all of that. And I guess reason number 3 is here in Minnesota, we get a decent amount of snow usually. It's been 2 years ago we got hardly any snow, which was very odd, but typically snow can be a great mulch. And so that kind of helps protect and insulate my soil throughout the winter time. Okay, so back to the green beans. We are so close to harvesting. Like, I think it'll be any day now. So we are getting very close and they're looking great. I think we'll have a wonderful harvest here. Green beans are a big part of our self-sufficiency strategy here because A, we enjoy them. B, they're very prolific. They're, you know, easy to grow, at least here in our climate. And then they freeze really well. I love it when I can freeze produce because it's so much less work than canning or freeze drying or any of that. Just throw it in a bag and it goes in the freezer. So green beans freeze super well. We enjoy it. So I try to grow quite a bit of it. So this is my first flush of green beans, and then I'll show you in a little bit where my second grouping of green beans is gonna go. Okay, what's next? This first section is kind of a hodgepodge. I have a big nasturtium, again, lots of leaves with, I guess, a few flowers way down in here. I don't know what's going on there. I think maybe it's too much nitrogen, but I mean, I added blood meal in the spring because my soil was severely deficient, like we're talking 10% of where it should be. So I don't feel like I overcorrected. Everything else is doing fantastic. My other flowers are flowering, so I don't know. If you have any ideas, I'll take it. And then this is my little chunk of onions that I planted. I just had some extra onion seedlings in an extra spot, so I just threw them here. They're cruising along. We're getting some little bulb development, but my main patch is over there, which we'll look at in a minute. Next up are potatoes. I think this has been my best potato year yet, and I've been hearing this from a lot of Minnesota gardeners, so I don't know what it is about our weather this year that has made them grow so huge. Like, these are massive. These guys are up to probably my upper waist, and the greens are looking great. I feel like they're usually browning by now or starting to look a little bit weathered. I even had to stake them up because they were just so massive and flopping over, so I've never had to stake my potatoes before. So I don't know, I haven't dug down at all to see how the tubers look. I'm hoping that they look as great as the greens do. And I definitely made sure to mulch. I have a double layer of mulch, so I don't hill my potatoes anymore because I have wood chips on the walking paths. So it'd be a little hard to like scoop the soil up and hill the potatoes. And if you're new to growing potatoes, you want to hill them because bringing soil up and onto the plants to make the potatoes even deeper, it keeps them cool and away from the sunlight, and that's going to help them grow better. So instead of doing the traditional soil, I just did extra mulch, and they seem to be doing really great. And as far as the varieties go, the main one that I grow is the red chieftain potato. That is just a really great producer. It lasts a long time in storage, and we enjoy eating it. But I did add a second one. I believe most of these are russet potatoes. I've never grown russet potatoes before. I don't know why. That's such a classic potato and will enable me to make like hash browns and freeze those for use all winter, that type of a thing. So excited about the russet potatoes. And I guess I shouldn't say that the potatoes are doing that great. I just remembered, it's amazing how quickly you forget. The reason why I have this empty patch up here is because we had such a cool start to spring that actually my little seed potatoes that I initially planted in, I don't know, maybe mid-May, rotted in the ground, and so I actually had a lot of spotty germination. So I kind of like pulled out some from this front section and plugged it in where they didn't come up so that they'd stay concentrated. I've never dug up potato seedlings and moved them before, but it worked. They seem okay. And then I had this nice open area then to plant these. So I don't know, you win some, you lose some. I think overall we're doing okay. And then down here is my carrot patch. I have 2 different kinds of carrots going, and this is by far my least favorite vegetable to grow. I just feel like germination is so spotty. I'm always having to come back and reseed, and then you have to thin them, and then just weeding is awful because I don't know. Anyways, we enjoy eating it though, and it's a huge part of our self-sufficiency strategy because these last forever in the fridge. They're just something we highly depend on. So I keep growing it even though I don't enjoy growing them. But this year is looking a whole lot better than last year when I got the aster yellows. So I'm hoping that they'll hang in there and we'll get a big harvest. But as far as my 2 varieties go, I have a slower growing carrot on the outside. That's kind of my big production and storage carrot. And I have a faster growing carrot in the middle so that we can get some fresh eating carrots in the summer. And then I was thinking once I harvest all those, that'll give these guys more room. I guess we can go ahead and look down together and see how they're looking. So as you can tell, I'm not very good about getting in there and thinning my carrots. It's just like my least favorite thing to do. So I don't know, my soil is pretty compacted. There we go. Hey, that's looking okay. Definitely looking for a bigger carrot for storage, but that's good for fresh eating. And then that'll give that guy a little bit more room to keep going. Oh yeah, and then here is my second, I think, salvia flower. I don't know why this one just looks awful, where the one up by the brassicas looks pretty great. So I don't know, I'm not so great with the flowers. I was curious if the garlic would make July garden tour or not, because usually I have it harvested by mid-July, and we are getting to the end of July now and we're just still not quite there. It's been moving along a little bit slower than usual. We're very close though. So what I'm looking for is that the bottom 2 to 3 leaves have gotten brown and kind of dried off, and we're getting there. Like they're starting to brown. You know, this one we have 2 at least. The 3 is getting there. This one we just have 1. We're still waiting on numbers 2 and 3. So I don't want to harvest too early because you really want to make sure that they are fully finished. But I actually stood in the garden for quite a bit of time a couple nights ago debating, because I knew, let's see how our weather's looking, that a bunch of rain was coming, and you don't want to harvest garlic when the soil's wet. And when I have heavy clay soil, it stays wet for a long time. So I don't know, I made the decision to wait. We're gonna let the rain pass through, and then I'll probably remove the mulch so that it'll dry out quicker. And then I'm hoping that, you know, by this weekend or by early next week, we can get it out of the ground, because I don't want to wait too long either. I have a whole video on harvesting garlic from last year. I'll link it in the description if you're interested. But we grow a lot of garlic, so a lot of this is going to end up getting planted again in October. But most of this is just gonna get packed away for both cooking and also for some herbal remedies. I'll probably give a bunch of this away to friends and family too. So this is probably too much, but we love garlic, so we just kind of went for it. And one other thing to note is I already pulled off all of the scapes. Those guys popped a few weeks ago. We love to eat them, so they're a great treat, but it's important to remove them because it's gonna help the plant focus on finishing that bulb out instead of creating the scape. I can really feel the humidity building now. I think the storm is gonna hit us anytime. So we'll see how much further we can get. And then behind the garlic, I still have a tray of some seedlings that just never found a home in my front gardens, is where you'll see the rest of my peppers, but they're kind of hanging in there. They're doing good in their little spots. And maybe if I can solve my ant issue over there, I can put them in over there, but until then, they're just hanging out. Okay, my friends, let's talk about my biggest disappointment in quite some time. This is supposed to be my corn patch, and I have 3 rows here. Usually this is a full row of double, like a double corn row. And then usually this one has corn here and corn in the back with squash in the middle. And then usually this one is a double row of corn. This one's looking a little bit better. This was my best patch, but it's still super spotty. You can see down here, there's no corn in this whole section. So what happened is, again, we had such a weird, cool, just up and down spring, and I had an awful time getting my corn to germinate. And I went ahead and planted my squash in the middle, which is supposed to just run down underneath my corn, but because my corn was so delayed, the squash just kind of took over, and the little seedlings that I finally got going as far as the corn goes just got demolished. They got taken over, crowded out, and it just is what it is. And I don't know, we'll see. And now that the corn is so spotty, the germination is probably going to be spotty as well. So I don't know, we'll see what we get, but at least the squash is looking absolutely fantastic. We have some huge leaves on here. I have a mix of Cinderella pumpkins. I think this is a Cinderella pumpkin. Yeah, you can actually see a little baby pumpkin started right there. But I only have one Cinderella pumpkin plant in here, and then I have 8 of the butternut squash, which actually seems surprising because I feel like everywhere I look, I see baby pumpkins. So I'm hoping that I actually have more butternut squash in here than it looks from the outside. As I look down here, there are some baby butternuts started. So yeah, we'll just see what we get, and we'll probably just be eating a lot of squash this year instead of corn, which is a bummer. So this whole fiasco got me thinking, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I prevent it from happening in the future? And I think, tell me if this is weird or not, but I feel like what I want to try next year is either just pre-germinating the corn seeds just in like a Ziploc bag with a paper towel, but I kind of feel like I want to take it one step further and do like a seed starting tray. I've seen the cells that are really small where there's, I don't know, maybe 100 plugs in a 10-20 tray, and just start them maybe a week before I want to plant so that they're little plugs of little starts. I don't know, that might give me a good head start. I feel like germination for corn has always been an issue for me. Nothing like this, but it's always been kind of like I have to go back and reseed, and it's just never been like a slam dunk for me. So I don't know, I might try it next year. Let me know what you think. And then last but not least, I'm really hoping that this turns out this year, because last year was a disaster, are my onions. So these are another huge producer for us. A, we love to eat onions, and B, these guys store really, really well. These are the Sedona F1 onion, and we're eating these well into, you know, late spring. And we're just starting to get some bulb development. We're still early in the season, so hopefully here with some good heat, they'll really start cranking away, and I'm fingers crossed hoping that they don't bolt. When it hit those 40-degree lows last week, I was starting to panic a little bit, because onions will bolt when they think that they've encountered winter and then moved on to year 2, then they'll bolt or go to seed. So far so good. I haven't noticed any blooms coming up. And this year I'm doing slightly different spacing. It's still pretty tight. I feel like I plant them a little bit tighter than most people, but I did it on like a 4 inches wide this way and 6 inches wide this way. So I have 4 rows of onions going here. I actually used to do it on a 4x4 grid, and I was like, man, I don't know, I'll give them a little bit more space. So we'll see how this turns out, but overall they've always done great, minus that one bolting issue last year. And here at the very end, I have some shallots. We love shallots as well. These have been in the garden longer, so they're already definitely starting to get some good bulb development. They also usually harvest earlier than the onions, so we should be harvesting shallots, I don't know, maybe within a couple of weeks. We're waiting for those tops to kind of kink and bend over. That's when we know it's time to harvest them. And as far as packing them away in storage, once they're fully cured, I love to braid them. I feel like they look beautiful, and then they're really easy to store that way. I have a whole video showing how to do that if you're interested. And then the last thing, sorry, the chickens have just been wild this morning, but the last thing that's going on back here in the back garden are sweet potatoes. This is my first time ever growing sweet potatoes. I'm so excited though. These are purple sweet potatoes, which are my favorite from Azure Standard. So I made the slips this spring, planted them in grow bags because everything that I've read and heard is that they love hot weather. So I thought grow bags would give the soil temp a little bit of a boost, and so far so good. We'll see if we end up with any sweet potatoes out of here. I can feel the storm building. We just have one little section left, so I have some gardens up by the cabin. We'll go take a peek. Okay, welcome to our little cabin. So I have a few things going on up here, which I love. I feel like it just adds some pizzazz to our cabin, and then it's nice to just have some things close by when I'm cooking. So first up is my newly transplanted rhubarb. I used to have it up growing next to the cabin. I think it was just too hot. It did not thrive. And here it is, happy as a clam. I'm really thankful because this rhubarb is so special to me. This has been in my family for probably 150 years. It came over on the boat from Sweden. And so I really want to make sure that I keep this thing going. This one's really, really important to me. And so I have it mulched with the wood chips again. I'm trying not to harvest from it this year because I moved it and disrupted it. So it's been really hard to sit on my hands and not bake a delicious rhubarb crisp, unfortunately, but hopefully by next year I can get in there and do some harvesting. This one looks a little bit more rough. Not sure. Maybe that one has more transplant shock, but the other sections also look good. Then I have a few raised beds. These are my birdies beds that I got from Epic Gardening, and I absolutely love them. This is a medium size. This one is a large size, and then I have two smalls back here. I do have a discount code and all that jazz. I can link them in the description if you'd like to get some. So what I have going on in here is I wanted to try some carrots up here because you know my saga with carrots. Not only are they just not very fun for me to grow, but back there where my soil is heavy clay and rock, not a great recipe for carrots. I thought, well, let's try it up here where it'll be, you know, looser soil and all of that. And so far they look really happy. I'm also finding that I'm weeding them a lot better and thinning them out better since they're just a lot more accessible up here. So that's been fun. I haven't really done much harvesting. I can probably start pulling these out pretty quick. And then we move on to the peppers. I have 2 rows of peppers here, and then this whole large bed is all peppers because what I figured out is that peppers, at least in my cold Minnesota climate, they do so much better in raised beds than in the ground because the raised beds have higher soil temperature, especially in the spring when we're trying to get that temp up. So they've been so happy since being in these raised beds. I'm really finally starting to make my pepper dreams come true. I'm super pumped. And as far as what varieties I have in here, I'm probably growing 10 different varieties of peppers. Some of them have fruit on them, not all of them yet. Like this one is largely just greens. I don't know. We have maybe a couple blooms in there. Hopefully it'll get it together. Come on, little guy, it's almost August. But this is a habanada. This is a new pepper for me, so we'll see if it passes the test or not, but it sounded great. I think this is a habanada as well. Looks like we still have some weeds in there. Otherwise, all of these are Scotch bonnets. And ooh, it looks like we're just starting to get a little bit of fruit set on there. Scotch bonnets are my favorite pepper for hot sauce. Highly recommend it. They're flavorful, super spicy, but not too spicy. It's a sweet spot. Love those. I also have some jalapenos in here. Those are coming in okay. Same with over here. We're getting lots of poblanos. These are looking great. These are ready to harvest, so I should get in there and do those. The poblanos freeze really good, and then I like to use them for chili in the wintertime. They just really add some great flavor for chili. And you'll notice my very basic staking system. I just like to use a stick with some twine on there to secure it, and that seems to work for the majority of my peppers. But I do have over here some cages. These are ones that I bought when I first started gardening over 15 years ago for my tomatoes. As you can imagine, that didn't go well. Don't buy these for your tomatoes, but they work good for your pepper plants. So I already had them, may as well repurpose them for something else. Now the bulk of what I have growing in here, so that's what these are, and these are Corno de Toro peppers. These are my stand-ins for bell peppers. I've just always struggled to grow bell peppers, even in these raised beds. I don't know why. It's just, maybe I'm too far north, maybe it's something I'm doing, but bell peppers, not so good. But I discovered Corno de Toro peppers. So these will, you can pick them when they're green, but they'll also turn red, and they're very, uh-oh, look at me go. I got too excited showing it to you guys. We'll eat this one today. But it's very similar to a bell pepper, but they're super prolific. We're doing really good. So this is just all I grow now. This little guy here is the red picnic pepper. They're just starting to turn red. These are just great fresh eating, sweet little baby peppers. They are so good. And then these ones are looking good. They're quite a wide pepper. It's been interesting. This is a new one to me. This is the Aji Rico pepper plant. So this one should be fun. Still waiting on those to get ripe. But my cayenne peppers, look at those. They are ready to pick. Okay, what else do we have? So this was my lovely spring box. I had all sorts of lettuces in here. This is the remainder of my arugula, which is actually hanging on. I thought it would have bolted by now, but she's doing okay. But the main heads of lettuce have definitely bolted. These are some remaining parts of the baby greens that I planted, and they still seem like decent. They're kind of halfway bolted, but I thought I would leave them for a little bit because I'm not quite ready to replant this bed. What I will be planting over here is, you can see I have some more fall starts going. These are my kohlrabi, so these guys need a little bit more time before I transplant them in, unlike the big ones, the cabbages and broccoli that I already planted. Same with lettuces. I started a bunch of lettuces. Those are so small that they are still in the house. So maybe in a week or two, these guys will be big enough to move into this bed here. The green onions are looking fantastic. We've been cooking a lot with these in the summertime. I also like to slice them up and freeze dry them, so then I have green onion in the wintertime. And then over here, I'm starting to rethink, but for now, this is still in here. This is my massive marshmallow plant. We are just starting to bloom there, but the roots are really good for harvesting for herbal medicine remedies. And you usually wait until year 2 to harvest the roots, and it is year 2. So I think I'll do that this fall sometime, or maybe within the month, and just get this out of here because it is so huge. I don't know if I really want to be dedicating this much of my precious raised bed space for this. So yeah. I also over here, here's another Scotch bonnet. I had an open spot because I was growing my St. John's wort here that just didn't survive the winter. We had some definitely cold temperatures down to -30 this winter. And yep, St. John's wort just didn't like that quite so much. So Scotch bonnet will be here for the summertime. And then here are the strawberries. This was a really disappointing harvest this year. I didn't pick my first strawberry until like July 1st. So they're supposed to be June bearing, but we didn't get them until July. Again, it was just such a cold start to the season. And then it kind of just got hot and wiped it out. So this has been kind of a sad year for strawberries. Okay, so we're on to our last section. Well, second to last. There's one more quick little one after this. But I think we're gonna beat the storm. Look at us go. So this is my edible landscaping. So first of all, I have some chives here, which look great, especially when it's freshly blooming. These guys are kind of over now and look a little bit sad, but these are blueberries, and I feel like, look how cute those are. I feel like that looks great. So love using blueberries. Plus, look at that. We are starting to have some ripe blueberries. We also have literally thousands of wild blueberry plants on our property. So I do a lot of harvesting out there as well, but this is just kind of nice to snack on when I'm out here working in the garden. As you can see, I'm not the greatest at getting in there and weeding all the time, but thankfully the mulch seems to help quite a bit. Over here, I am using pine needles for mulch because A, we have a lot of pine needles, and B, they provide just a little bit of acidity, which the blueberries appreciate. Next up is mint. So mint can be super invasive. So definitely keep that in a pot, not in your garden. But this has just been so delicious. And then down here is my rosemary. These guys are looking pretty darn great. Unfortunately, they don't survive the winter here in Minnesota, so I have to buy this new every year, but that's all right. It gives me a good excuse to go to our little local nursery. It's one of the few things that I don't start myself. And oh, I can just smell it from here. I love rosemary. We'll be freeze drying a bunch of this so that we can enjoy this for cooking all in the wintertime. And then the basil, this has been kind of disappointing. I mean, it looks okay, but it's not great. It has a lot of kind of yellowing. It doesn't have like that deep prolific growth than I would like. There is some little bits of bolting on there, so I've been trying to get in there and pinch off those blooms to give it a little bit more time. I feel like it's just not quite as happy here as it was. I think I had it in the raised beds last year, which is interesting because also next to it, the dill is also doing awful, like the worst dill I've ever grown. I think these look exactly the same as how they looked in garden tour last month. They're just not growing whatsoever. I've tried fertilizing them. I mean, the soil isn't super great here. I'm not sure what was put in, you know, next to the house. And this is where the rhubarb was, which also wasn't doing great. So I don't know if there's something in the soil here that they're just not liking, or if it's just luck of the draw. I mean, these guys down here are doing great, so I don't know. And so the dill situation has definitely thrown a wrench into my pickle making. I started to panic a few weeks ago once I really started to realize that this dill is not happening. How am I gonna make my pickles? And so thankful for a supportive community. You know, I love self-sufficiency and doing things as much as I can myself, but not everything works out. And so it's great to have a neighbor nearby who also gardens, and she had plenty of dill, so she was able to give me some of hers, and I gave her some maple syrup in exchange, and yeah, it all worked out. So I just threw it all in the freezer so that I can just pick through that as I make pickles throughout the season. I did start some little dills in the house. I don't know, dill doesn't really like to be transplanted very well either, so we'll see if I get any dill this year. And the next to the dill failure is thyme, which is doing really great. These guys I started from seed indoors this spring. I definitely need to get through and do some chopping and freeze dry this away. Some of them didn't come back, like this was a thyme, this was a thyme. This one kind of came back from last winter, but this one did great. This one came back from last year, so you just never quite know. So I always start a few just in case, and I'm definitely glad that I did that. Some more invasives here in pots. I have my lemon balm, which is doing great, and oregano. Our new mini split from Signature Solar. So thankful for this with how hot and humid this summer has been so far. This has been so wonderful. Have some cilantro going here. A couple of it is starting to bolt already, but a lot of it is still good. I try to do succession plantings for cilantro so that I always kind of have some fresh stuff coming up, and now I'm realizing that this one didn't really come up so great. So I'm just not so good at babying seedlings, especially in the heat of summer where these probably needed to be watered every day. Yeah, didn't do that. This is my sorrel. It basically looks the same as it did last month. I didn't get any comments telling me what I should do with this, so I haven't done anything. I don't know if I'm supposed to chop these off or what, but I don't know. It's still producing some fresh leaves, and I don't know, maybe we'll get a fall harvest out of it. But it was wonderful in the spring. This has been such a great like first green that I can harvest in the early spring, which is much appreciated after a long winter. So even though it's not like the most impressive thing right now, this I think is still worth it. And last but not least, we have some herbs in here. We have lots of parsley. I have 3 different plants in here. Love, love, love parsley. I freeze dry tons of jars of it, and we always go through it. Parsley is probably one of my favorite herbs. And then I have some sage. Now these 2 came back this year, and they're looking huge and lovely from last year. And then this is a brand new one that I started inside this spring. Parsley, it will technically come back, but it's a biannual. So if you leave it in the ground, it'll come back in the spring, but it'll largely just go to seed and not produce very many great leaves. So I start those fresh every year. All right, let's finish the garden tour with my new little berry patch around the corner. It's coming along pretty good. Some stuff isn't doing very great, but a lot of it's doing well. So I'll pop you around the corner and see what you think. So here it is. This area has really transformed our immediate cabin space. It really just kind of makes it feel a little bit more cozy and less wild out here. This used to just be these whatever bushes growing straight into the yard. And then Ryan came through with the excavator and kind of scooped out the brush. I leveled it out. We put down the wood chips. We put the rocks down. We have lots of rocks on our property. And so I just kind of dug around. All of these I just found laying along the driveway. They're just everywhere. And then as we go along the front. They keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. These massive rocks Ryan had to move with his excavator. So thankful for that tool. And yeah, it just wraps all the way around here. And I think it turned out really nice. So this is my first one, and it's not necessarily a berry plant, but this one looks so sad. This is my lilac, and I actually bought this last year. So it's been living in a pot, wanting to be planted for way too long, and this is what I ended up with. So I jumped the gun on buying that. I should have waited, and I'll probably need to replace that, which I'm so sad. I love lilacs. At our last homestead, we had a just entire wall of lilacs along the road, and I loved them. So then we are moving on to our berry plants, and a lot of these are kind of cool. I wanted to get unique berries that I can't necessarily find here on our homestead. We have a lot of wild raspberries and blueberries and blackberries, but yeah, what about a Josta berry? So I don't know of those anywhere on our property, and they looked pretty neat, so I'm gonna give that a try. This is an aronia berry. It looks like it's still small, but it looks like it's grown quite a bit from last month, so I'm hoping it'll take root and survive this winter. This is also supposed to be highly medicinal, so super pumped about that one. This is a black currant, so not quite as unique, but I wanted to give it a try, and it seems to be pretty happy in this spot. This is a little gooseberry. This is something that I must have killed. This is another gooseberry, I believe. Here's another aronia berry. This one seems quite a bit smaller than the other one. This one, surprise, surprise, is thriving. This is a raspberry bush, which is basically a weed around here. But I planted this because this is gonna be a yellow raspberry, which seemed pretty neat. So we're gonna give that a try, and hopefully it won't take over. This one is a white currant, which is pretty cool. I've never eaten a white currant before, so hopefully this one sticks it out. And then this one is another Josta berry, a gooseberry that didn't make it. I think this is a third Josta berry. I don't have a label on that one. And then this one is a very sad black elderberry. I'm not sure if that one's gonna make it or not. And it seems kind of weird that I'm planting elderberries because we actually have thousands of elderberries on our property, but they're all the red elderberries, which are toxic. So the black elderberries have been really tough for me to find here on our property. I did plant a couple last year, actually here along this tree line. You can see this is my best one so far. This one is really growing well. You can see how tall it is. Hopefully we'll get some fruit by next year. So I think that's it for garden tour. I can notice the gnats and the mosquitoes have really come out in the last 5 minutes. I'm getting eaten alive, so the storm is just about to hit, so our timing was perfect. Thanks so much for joining me on garden tour. I always love just walking through the garden and talking about all the gardening things with you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you on the next one.